are recording this and it'll be on our YouTube channel. I don't imagine we're going viral, but I just wanted to be clear. So I guess it's 12:01, so I'm going to welcome you all. I'm Blake Cohn. I'm the Executive Director of the National Network of Schools in Partnership. I'm really excited you guys are here. I think that, hi Guyby, the timeliness of this conversation is so important. I've spent the last 2 weeks thinking about these kids in Parkland, Florida, and how they have developed these skills prior to their tragedy that prepared them to become such effective student activists. And I think about, these are skills we'd want all of our students to have. And so how can we best support our students? And God forbid that any of our students have this similar tragedy, but how can we best support our students to become activists when they come across something that inspires them to act? So I put some notes in the chat function on the side. If you're on video, you can click chat, and on the side, I just put some general sort of guidelines. I believe there'll be a lot of people trying to participate on this webinar, and so if you could put yourself on mute unless you're speaking, that saves us all the feedback and the background noises. And if for whatever reason you're having difficulty with your microphone, or even just getting your point across, if you're having trouble participating, please use the chat function to submit a comment. I will then help direct the conversation. We really intend this to be a conversation, not a lecture. We don't have the answers to the questions that we're going to look at today. I'm hoping that we can draw on our experiences at our schools and help one another think through the challenges and the opportunities that we have for our students. So I had said that we're going to shape this conversation with 4 framing questions. And so the questions that we'll start with are, what are we doing immediately to support our students during this current wave of activism? And then how do you ensure, that all activism is supported? Rachel's saying she's having difficulty hearing. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
Okay. So sorry, Rachel, I don't know. And then the third is, how can we help students develop these skills within their traditional academic experience? How can we get some of these opportunities out of extracurricular or what have you, and how do we get them into the classroom during the traditional academic day? And then finally, what challenges present themselves when looking at student activism and supporting our students, and just creating solid programs for our kids to develop what I call the critical character skills: empathy, compassion, listening, collaboration, critical thinking, etc., which will all in turn create these young student activists. Finally, when you speak, if you could introduce yourself and then just say where you're from, I think it helps. We are called the National Network of Schools in Partnership, and I think the networking is my favorite part of this. And so helping create allies in different schools that are doing this work would be very helpful. So I'm going to start by asking you all what you all are doing currently to support your students with this current wave of activism. No?
Hi, this is Chris. I'm Chris Dennis. I'm the head of lower school at Wesley. We're clear on between the 3 upcoming actions, having our middle school students participate in the 17-minute walkout is something they'd like to do in the middle school. In the lower, we're pretty clear that we don't want to introduce or reinscribe any traumas from which families have protected their children amongst the youngest learners. So we want to do actions that are organized explicitly around campus safety that are just sort of starting to take shape. I guess what for me is the greatest source of confusion is what to do for and with and near some of the students in the middle, right? That subset of students at like third, fourth, fifth who might wish to participate with the older students in an organized action, but who are in a classroom group with other students who are don't necessarily have the same relationship to either to the issues or to enacting a commitment that way. And so we're just sort of in an emerging phase. We're going to find some clarity in the next couple of days.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. This is Pamela Wright and Regina Rosie Mitchell from Marlboro School. We're an all-girls school in Los Angeles, grades 7 through 12. And on the 14th, what we're going to do is we're hosting all the students who will be walking out. I mean, if they want to opt out, of course, they're more than welcome to not participate. But we have students meeting on the field where we're hosting. It's sort of less of a walkout, more of a memorial to the students from Parkland and previous shootings. There's a bit of a program that we're working out right now. It's student led, and we're really just sort of here to support them with what they want to see happen on the field. And then following that, you know, to respond to that desire for activism, we're hosting on campus a few different stations where students have the opportunity to write postcards to elected officials or voters expressing their concern about gun laws and gun regulation, whether it's local or at a federal level. And we also have a couple offices that are being turned into phone banks, so students are more than welcome to come in and exercise their civic, some nice civic practice of calling elected officials and letting them know where they stand on gun regulation. So that's one thing that we've done that it responds to that desire to want to do something. Is that we've got, you know, the memorial, but what's really important is the aftermath of, you know, writing postcards to elected officials, coming together the community. We have donation jars, which we're not pushing as much, but the students wanted them there. And calling elected officials. And that includes, you know, making sure they have scripts. They know what to say. I mean, for some of them, they've called elected officials many times, and this is an easy phone call. But for a lot of them, this is their first time. So they need a little coaching and some affirmation after.
And then to add to that, we're also going to be hosting an optional education opportunity with our debate coach, actually, who is going to be going over the different laws, really presenting both sides of the issue too, so that we're trying to make this inclusive of all students despite where their political leanings might be. And so that's going to be optional for students to attend. And again, more of this idea of educating students about, you know, what our current laws are. And what we're grappling with right now is that safety piece. So for students who actually do want to walk off campus, what that would look like. And right now we're considering that if students actually do want to walk off, we certainly don't want to lock our gates and keep them in, but that they might have to have parental permission to do so.
Sorry, I put a question in the chat. What grades are you doing this work with? Is that middle school?
Grades 7 through 12.
7 through 12? Okay.
But and similar, I mean, we have certain, I would actually say that our 9th and 10th graders right now are the ones who are most revved up to actually walk off campus, while our 11th and 12th graders are more thinking in terms of if we really want to do something as a community and have more of a community impact, it makes more sense for all 500 plus of us, students and faculty, to be in one space where we can actually see each other instead of walking up and down the sidewalks. But it's going to be interesting to see. It's certainly evolving. Honestly, I feel like our plan has evolved a little bit every single day.
Thank you.
And who's spearheading this? Is it faculty or is it students?
It started with, I mean, the day after, or 2 days after the shootings, we did have a number of emails from students saying, you know, we hear this walkout's going to be happening. What can we do? Then our senior administration said, okay, we would really prefer just like keeping in mind the safety of our students. I mean, that's our number one concern, given that we're in a pretty urban area, to move more towards a memorial. And then the other initiatives are really spearheaded by students with faculty support.
I had a question for the group, and thank you, Blake, for taking on this work together, folks, and for everyone chiming in. I know this is a complicated subject to navigate through, and I'm grateful for everyone's contributions. My question is, and it's come up with our students and maybe with you as well, and with our professional community, is while we want to support the energy and activism of the students here, what about other issues that we didn't walk out on or we could walk out on? You know, DACA, immigration, dreamers, homelessness, you name it. And so it's been really complicated because for some, this is really important. And then folks also have the issues that are important to them. So I'm just wondering if, you know, that complexity has come across your radars and how you're navigating through that. Just briefly for us, a little bit of a difference here is that this is so much a student-led effort. So we're really trying to kind of both support the students and also get out of their way. But, you know, the whole DACA Dreamer effort, you could also make the same argument that that's also being student-led. But just putting that out there for folks.
Hi there. That's a great question. And as you were speaking, we were kind of nodding and looking at each other like, yeah, this is a great point. Something I would say though is that, you know, we haven't seen the same critical mass come together around DACA or Dreamers or, you know, I mean, we're an all-girls school. So, you know, you think issues that affect women, whether it's comprehensive women's health care or, you know, equality in the workplace. I mean, there's so many issues that our students really gravitate to, but there's something about this one that feels different in the sense that they're much more organized and they're much more of like a unified front. And maybe it's the issue itself. It's sort of hard to not want to see some kind of gun regulation, sort of regardless of where you stand on guns. I think there's just different opinions. It's not so black and white, in other words. And we're also just seeing these students. I mean, I think that the students from Parkland are really the ones leading the charge on this. And they see what are their peers organizing. And I think they want to be part of that, where we haven't quite seen that with, you know, Black Lives Matter or DACA and Dreamers or TPS. It's not quite the same. So, but you do bring up a really good question, is what do we do if this starts to become sort of the response to all issues, the walkout? But we haven't seen that yet. I haven't.
I'm not sure if you all can hear me.
We can hear you.
Oh, okay, good. I had some issues with my audio. I am the director of service learning at Riverdale Country School in the Bronx, which is a K-12 school in right north of Manhattan. And we have been, you know, along with you all, thinking about how to support students and support student activism and civic engagement across the board. And so we've been working on a document that is actually called Supporting Student Civic Engagement that that we can refer to, you know, anytime a large global issue like this comes up, but certainly this has come up in the past. And, you know, I'm thinking about, we had, you know, around Black Lives Matter last January when the Women's March happened, and again this year. So it's a document that's certainly a work in progress, and that, you know, at the moment is internal, but being incorporated into our handbook at Riverdale. But something that we can hopefully refer to and refer students to in terms of the type of support that they're seeking. So, you know, items like level of student involvement, both the number and the connection to existing activities, availability of necessary resources, personnel availability, you know, recognizing that student civic engagement is voluntary, you know, and then as it relates to politics, you know, that's very, you know, very clearly stressed, you know, that the school and, you know, the students and faculty can, you know, must clearly communicate that the views expressed are their own and not the school's. And, you know, and you can't make statements like Riverdale Country School supports XYZ necessarily. and that school funds cannot be used, for those things. But in light of all of that, because those are sort of like the ugly details or, the logistics, that we want to support student advocacy whenever and wherever possible. So we have, for example, with the most recent, with the school walkout, we have a group of students that came forward and have already been meeting, and this is from 6th grade all the way up through 12th grade, students on their own with some faculty support to help get them organized. But they are planning to participate in the national school walkout at 10 a.m. on March 14th for the 17 minutes. And they're leaving, it's actually the week of our exams, so they will be walking out during exams, which is interesting. And we'll be observing for the 17 minutes of silence. And they're organizing some other student activism activities, letter writing and showing solidarity, supporting the national movement, demonstrating that we as a school values safety. And so, as things continue to unfold, we want to be supportive of students, absolutely, but also recognizing that it's tricky, and we are a school, and so we're open to hearing what others are doing, which is why I was so interested in this call.
Rachel, there's a question for you on the chat thing that says, when you say civic engagement, what other activities are you talking about?
Sure. So the working document that we have, I can kind of read through some of it. It says, let's see, the school encourages students and faculty to exercise their civic rights and participate as individuals. However, the school's status as, and it goes into, that we're restricted in terms of, lobbying and things like that. But though the school does not endorse political organization, Riverdale will support student civic engagement so long as it is not a campaign activity when deemed appropriate by the administration. So that would be, allowing students to use typical methods of communication. So some, email and posters and things like that, providing adult chaperones to events. So last year when the Women's March, we organized an optional trip down to DC for students and families. Some parents came as well. Providing material support when possible, such as transportation or photocopying or things like that. And providing some time during school hours to support those related activities. Does that help answer that question?
Yeah. My name is Lauren Moyer. This is Betsy Brody. We're at San Francisco Day School. Guy B, your question, that actually hasn't come up here, but I know in some of the local high schools, there's been some controversy over what do you support and why didn't you support us and things like that. Here at school, we're still working to figure out just what we're going to do. As someone said earlier, our kindergarten through 4th grade teachers do not want to participate in anything. They're worried about how the kids will feel, if they will feel unsafe. And if something does come up, they're going to frame it in terms of wanting peace. With the middle schoolers, the 7th graders are going to do an activity around the Second Amendment and then think of actions that they can take, whether it's writing letters or thinking of other ways to participate. The question has also come up, what about students who feel differently on this topic? Are we sticking to just gun control legislation, or are we talking about something else? But try to make whatever happens on the 14th as inclusive as possible. And our division head is going to meet with our student congress Wednesday to get more student input. But so far in our middle school, the 7th graders seem to be the ones who are most engaged. And one of their questions is, does it really make a difference if we do march or protest in some way for those 17 minutes?
So I'm going to circle back to Chris's question that started this. Is he was asking about the middle grades, those grades that sort of bridge elementary and middle school, and every school is different, right? But how do you separate your 7th graders and what they're doing from, I'm going to say maybe your 5th and 6th graders who aren't mature enough or emotionally capable of talking about these issues without feeling fear or threatened, et cetera. How are schools navigating that? I know there's a bunch of schools here that are talking about younger grades. So I think it's an interesting question. Like, how do you mark that walkout when the kids are in the same building?
One of the things, just to piggyback on that we were thinking about doing and haven't fully formed yet is recognizing that there's that subset of students, whether it's because they have older siblings and or because their parents don't have like a media embargo at home or whatever, who may want or need a space to process whatever it is they're shouldering with all of this. And so to that end, we thought about the possibility of a communication to parents to frame and support a conversation at home that could build up to including an invitation to come to an opt-in after school event where, we'd get a half a dozen teacher to basically hold community circles by grade level bands with the parents, and just together have the conversations that parents in agreement with their children hope to have without making that mandatory or inviting some of the triggers that would happen if it was facilitated in a regular, like 3rd grade classroom, for example. So I just wanted to put that out there as something that we're thinking about, but haven't found closure on.
We're also a K-6, pre-K through 6 school, and we have, we're sort of planning with our 4th through 6th graders to do like an assembly or a meeting with just them so that it's not disruptive to the pre-K through 3rd graders, and to really have a conversation more about student activism as well as about inclusion and peace and sort of what all of that means in a very age appropriate way for them. So far, our students haven't really come to us about wanting to do something. So this is more being led from our leadership as well as our faculty. So it should be interesting, especially as we get closer to the 14th, what we decide to do with that.
I'm wondering if people are building this into any of the existing curriculum and courses that are happening. My name's Colleen. I am a social justice teacher at St. Mark's and also the director of the Center for Innovation in Teaching and Learning. And it just so happened that one of the sort of challenges of trying to not simply teach social justice, but do social justice in a busy independent school, especially boarding school community, is how do you find time to actually do stuff off campus and like actually engage with the world in a meaningful way. And so I just basically started on my spring semester when this happened, and it has definitely invigorated some of the learners to really focus their project on this issue. But what's interesting is there was already a separate, just 2 students on their own started hanging up signs. And so as an educator about social justice, but also part of the school leadership team, I'm thinking, how do we not have it seem simply as like an add-on separate thing, but how do we build it into real deep learning that's happening in our schools? And one of the things I highly recommend for anyone doing any work with social justice at all is the brand new edition of Sensoy and D'Angela's book, Is Everyone Really Equal? And what I love about it is it talks about how you can't do social justice without also treating it as an academic and scholarly endeavor. You have to know your shit, basically. You have to really be able to understand and grapple with the complex issues, not simply respond and react on out of a personal or anecdotal on that level. And so one of the things I'm grappling with is how to support student activism and this idea that they can do real work in the world but also to make sure that we ground it in this understanding that you also need to be knowledgeable, and you need to do some research and learning to make sure that you understand what you're speaking to, either in conversations or through your activism. And again, I don't want to temper their enthusiasm, but I want to make sure that it's also a learning and growth experience. Because, we talk a lot about things like fake news right now, or we're grappling with this idea of trying to move beyond opinion-based understandings to evidence-based understanding. So, I'm wondering how people are doing that, either making curricular connections so that it doesn't feel like an add-on to learning, and helping kids understand that we need to not simply be reactionary, but to really try and build our knowledge and understanding, as well as be activists. That's part of being an activist, I guess.
Colleen, it's super interesting. I mentioned in the first webinar that we did, the Slate article. There's an article, and I can share it in a second, about why these students in Parkland are so successful in their activism. And it talks about how, because of the school and the demographics of the school, they have managed to save all of their extracurricular programs that other schools have gotten rid of. And extracurricular probably isn't the right word, but they have a strong drama department. They have a debate club or a debate team. And that those experiences are what this article says is why these students have been so successful. The debate team happened to be studying gun reform this fall. And then a lot of these students are drama students, so they are comfortable being on stage and talking with poise. And so it's just really interesting how the sort of extras that the public schools are taking out of our kids' academic careers are what are actually making these solid democratic citizens.
But I also, we watched the Emma Gonzalez speech and sort of started analyzing it. And what I had them do, because we had been doing some work on activism and activists, and we talked about how she cited research, how she talked about the, it being part of an AP Gov project, all that. And I said, how does she, what makes her speech so compelling? It's not simply her emotion, it's also the intelligence and the knowledge and the research that went behind it.
Right. And Emily posted that article for me. So
super.
Thank you. So my question is, what are we doing? This goes right with what Colleen's saying. What are we doing in our schools to prepare our kids to be ready for this kind of activism? What do you have at your school that makes it unique, that gives your kids a leg up in being good student activists, whether it's service learning opportunities or dive-in conversations at lunch that allow them to be comfortable talking with others about things that they don't, difficult conversations. What is happening at your schools, and how can we share these ideas with one another to create stronger programs for our students? Oh, you're not going to make me practice my Quakerism, are you?
I can speak to it on a very small scale. So my name is Hannah Roach. I'm the service learning coordinator at the University of Chicago Lab School. And we're nursery through 12, and I work with 6th through 12th grade. Our students are, last Friday we actually had the walkout because we'll be on spring break March 14th, and they wanted to still do something during the school day. So one of the things, like, to answer your question, that I think was really powerful is that after the walkout, the students led a lunch session for call-ins and writing. It actually was not very well attended according to the student organizers, but one of the things that I think worked really well is that the entire initiative was student run, but supported by the administration and faculty. But the students that ran the session already had practice with call-ins and writing because they're part of Save the Children Action Network has a student ambassador program. And so they're part of this student ambassador program where they're receiving training on how to do advocacy and train other students around forming campaigns for political advocacy. So those students were the ones that led the call-in and writing in discussion, which is something that I think worked really well for them to both put into practice some of the things they've been trained on, but then also share with other students their experience.
I'm an alum of the school, and I just want to say that coverage of your walkout was pushed to me. This is Tesha at Castellea. And so that was really effective and kind of inspiring as a fellow educator to see what you'd already done. So I think sometimes we forget to do that kind of thing, to cover it and share it, but it was really inspiring to get, and I was proud of my school for doing that.
Thanks. Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that was one of the big things. I was actually quite surprised. I was not involved. I can't speak to much of the internal workings because I wasn't involved in the student organizing piece. But when we walked out, I mean, it was covered by all the local news scenes, which was really surprising. And I think for some made them question like what's the purpose of this? Is this to get on the screen? But then I think also to share the message was really important as well. So.
Thank you for sharing that. That's one of the concerns that we have at Marlboro in LA, where grades 7 through 12, all girls, independent school, is that there's something about a walkout that sort of speaks to teens. It's like, it's defiant. It's like, feels a little risky. They love it. And it's great. We want to support them in that, and let them explore, those avenues. But, we've tried to educate the girls in that, you can walk out, but what's probably even more effective is calling elected officials or writing to voters or writing to elected officials. And my concern is that they're so caught up in the walkout that the work after is going to be poorly attended. And so thank you for sharing that, because that is something I'd be really interested to see, that some of our students who are sort of the loudest about wanting to walk out are not going to participate in the work after. And in fact, I would say that one of the things that we've done as a school is we've given our students almost limitless resources with this event. I mean, we've pulled faculty that we think is appropriate. They wanted, like, at one point they wanted t-shirts, and we're accommodating to all of their ideas in the name of making this student run. But it becomes an issue with some students who start to feel like, well, now this has become a Marlboro thing. And so it's a little bit like, we're damned if we do, and we're damned if we don't. It's like, we want to support you, and then we do support you, and you tell us we've taken over and this has become a school thing. And then if we don't support you, then the school was never supportive of us walking out, and that gives us reason to be upset about the whole thing. So it isn't the majority of the students. It's always like just a handful of students who kind of seem to have the loudest voice in opposition to the support. But it'll be interesting to see. I mean, I'm happy to report back after, but it'll be interesting to see how many students, go to the memorial, feel really strongly about being present for that, but then maybe don't participate in the action after, or how many students feel like the memorial isn't speaking to that sort of rebelliousness to this, that does carry the message. I mean, that is important, but are going to walk off campus, and again, are not going to make the time to call elected officials or write to voters or more conservative elected officials.
This is Mary Francis. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I work with a group of Catholic schools, private Catholic schools. Some are all girls, some are co-ed, and it ranges, pre-K up through 12 different configurations. But we just sent out a message to the schools, to the presidents and principals, and also to the chairs of the board, and really tried to link our educational vision, which is about education for transformation for the individual and society, and a couple other documents that have come out about faithful citizenship and the seamless garment of life. And certainly this is a life issue in terms of decisions that are made on gun control. actually, we see it's an opportunity because this gun control is something you can have different founded opinions on that do rest on thought and reflection and information. And the new insight I have gotten from a comment that was made is we do have the advantage of all of these clubs and extracurriculars, and some of them are institutionalized even within the curriculum. But I also think every school has a leadership group of students, and to be very intentional about connecting with those students and mixing faculty and students to have some of the deeper conversations around what's underneath the decisions that we're advocating for. You know, what are the values? What was the original intent of the Second Amendment? What's the intent of law and policy? You know, it's not to limit, it's to allow us to reach the greatest level in any particular area. And one school has let me know that they're calling the walkout day a walk-in day. And during that time, they're going to have a number of things going on, that they're inviting parents and, you know, local people in government to come. There's going to be a faculty-student debate where both sides of gun control, different propositions on gun control are, you know, being presented. They're doing a memorializing. They've done a memorializing already, and doing some of the things that were mentioned before about giving students a chance verbally and in written form to articulate, you know, and then to get the support to, you know, to get that forward and out there. You know, they're trying to, they won't, any parent that wishes to have their child be part of the walkout, they're asking that the parent be there, you know, for them to be with their parent in terms of whatever local event they'd be going with. The school does not feel, from safety perspective, that they can organize or provide, you know, chaperoning or transportation or anything like that. They just feel they don't want it to be a day of the community divide, their school community divided, because certainly students and parents have different attitudes toward the walkout. So I just think what I'm appreciating from everything I've seen from Parkland and what you've been sharing is what teachers and administrators are doing. I think it's really been a time to recenter some of what we're doing. That even in terms of our service, you know, we encourage our schools that your service should include advocacy. You know, we want to go beyond charity. I mean, charity is very important, and people in need should be responded to in all sorts of ways from the resources we have. But changing structures or influencing decisions are really very important. So thank you. I'm taking away a good bit from what you're sharing. And congratulations to each of you, really, in the thoughtful way you're going about this. And you have to do it differently in different communities, I think. Yeah, so.
Thank you, Mary Frances. That's the kind of encouragement everybody needs. I think you bring up a really good point about how you have to look at your own community and how you structure these events specifically, knowing your board of trustees, your parents, your student body, your geographic location. So what are some of the challenges that you all see within your community in organizing these events or in supporting student activism in general? What are the biggest hurdles? And perhaps we can share how we've overcome some of our hurdles to help one another.
I think I don't know what the answer is, but I'm always the kid in class that like always spoke when it was utter silence. So I I think one of the challenges that we will have is going to be, how do we keep this movement alive? And then also, to Gaiby's point, how do we take on other student initiatives and other demand change for other social issues, knowing, I think in particular, our setting in Chicago is that in neighborhoods surrounding our school, there is extreme gun violence, and it's something that no student has ever organized a walkout for. And that point has been brought up now by several students about why now. And I think somebody was sharing that there is much more of a movement of young people across the country, and I think that brings momentum for it. So I understand kind of how it is that students jumped into it from that perspective. But I think the challenge really for us will be, how do we tap into this so that we can continue to support student initiative? And then really, I do think at some point there might need to be more faculty led or like a framework in place to support those initiatives, because they bring a lot of energy. But I think, like, for something to be more sustainable, we might need to make sure that there's something in place that can support that.
Yeah, I agree, and think that that's why we're working so or another issue, or so that there is something that we can always refer students to, and faculty also, something that we can share with parents as a resource, because fortunately or unfortunately, the world is going to we're going to continue to face issues, whether it's around women's rights or LGBTQ rights or race, gender. I mean, it's ever the more complicated. And so I think having something to reference is really important, to put that in place. I think the more curricular ties you can make, the better. And I think that that's a conversation that each school needs to have with its administration, its department chairs. I think that I appreciate the book recommendations. I have it. I just put that book you recommended, Blake, in my Amazon cart. I'm going to buy it today because I think it's important to. I don't remember who said it at some point, but that to circulate articles like the one that you sent around that appeared in Slate, and to start the conversation now. It's not too late. It's never too late, and I think. Opening the conversation up to others and to students mostly, and to supporting students who want to be engaged and need to be engaged in a safe way.
Do any of you know of, at your school or of any school where they actually have a class that is devoted to issues, like issues and choices? Because I hear, and we do the same thing, it's an extracurricular or it's almost an add-on, but does anyone know of a school where issues like this are front and center, so they're always being discussed?
Hi, this is Pamela from Marlboro. We are actually launching a class next year that is a social justice action research course. It's not a typical curriculum sort of where we are covering all the issues, but rather the way the class is laid out, it actually begins the summer before the school year starts. It's only open to seniors. The students will self-identify an issue that speaks to them. They don't need to know the nonprofit they want to work with, but they do need to have a strong sense of an issue that is aligned with their values and beliefs. And then we work together to identify a nonprofit where they'll volunteer the summer prior to the academic year. They will be volunteering there on a very regular basis. I'm not necessarily married to a certain number of hours that they need to volunteer, but it is something that they are committed to doing on a very regular basis. And what we have them do during the summer is guided reflections. They can do those reflections in however they see best fit, whether they want to keep a journal or write a blog or a video journal. It's up to them. But I think that reflection is a really key piece to what happens sort of down the road, and also their own journey as activists and social change agents. And then when we come back in the school year, they will still be volunteering with the nonprofit, but what they're really focusing on is research. It is, classic research, the triangulation of data. I mean, their data sources can be really fun. I mean, it's everything from academic journals, but also blogs and documentaries. I mean, I'm very open to what they want to explore, as long as they are keeping, they're going to be keeping an annotated bibliography and going through the research process. With that, they will identify or propose really something that they can contribute to the nonprofit. We'll talk about sustainability. We'll talk about whether it's mutually agreed upon. Are you really meeting a need? Is your proposal furthering the nonprofit's mission? Why mission statements are so important to nonprofits? And then they spend the second semester executing that project. And then it ends with, not a showcase, but just showing what the project was, but also sort of their journey through the process. So that's what we're doing. This is a new class next year. So I'll let you know. It could go either way, but I'm hoping it will.
I'm sharing a link right now with that is from Penn Charter School, which is in Philadelphia. It's a Quaker school, and they have a piece, Social Justice and Change. It's 2 semester-long courses. There's 1 and 2. You have to scroll down a tiny bit on that on the link, but it takes a history of social change and social justice work, and then in the second semester allows the kids to explore ideas of their own. And then they have, and it looks like it wasn't available this particular school year, but they also have something called urban education, which they look at the city of Philadelphia and innovative ways to make change within the city. So I don't know if that's what you were looking for, but it's always good to just see different ways that that schools approach this work.
I can just speak to, next year, we're going to have a brand new class in our middle school that'll be for 8th graders. And it will be, they meet 3 times a week, and they have 1 long period, so that part of the class will be about getting them out and engaged in community work during the school day. So that was something that we really needed, because it was, as you were saying, something that was added on after school or on weekends for individual students. So this is something that beyond getting groups off through like advisory or something like that, this will be a class. The curriculum is really, right now, it's in its like baby stages, because we're hiring somebody for that position. So that person will get to create what that's going to look like.
Did you say it's going to be once a week?
It'll be 3 times a week. So it's, that 2 45-minute classes, 1 90-minute class. And it's the same group of kids that would be going through other rotations like drama or music. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yep. Yes, exactly. It is. I'm very excited about it.
Thank you.
That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
So I have one question. It comes up often about advisories and how this is a really good place to foster these conversations and to encourage kids and to continue to harness this energy. It would be a really good place to harness this energy of kids who are empowered currently. But how do you empower your teachers to have these conversations and to sort of delve into things that they don't see themselves as content masters of, and to feel confident and skilled in talking about advocacy and activism when that is sort of an extra part of their job as well? What do you do to support your teachers?
Hi, this is Regina from Marlboro. We can certainly speak a bit about that. We actually, we launched a new advisory program this year. In the last two years, we tried to work social justice component into advisory and it was a tough go. We did have, the expected response that some teachers were all in and took on the role of, I might not be an expert in this, but let's learn together and we're all in this together, while we had other teachers who felt very uncomfortable taking on that role and feeling like they weren't the content experts. And so we have actually since more or less removed the social justice piece from our advisory curriculum. But that piece of having faculty equipped or prepared to have these conversations in the classroom is an important one. And so actually one of the things that we're going to be doing this Wednesday is we're having students go into class meetings to discuss the plan with their classes. And so it really comes from the students, and not just that it's coming from the adults or from the administration. But before that, during our Wednesday morning employee meeting, we're actually calling a special meeting just on this topic to assure that we actually have a conversation with all faculty members about how to best support students. Because what we don't want, and we actually think that we've had this issue already, is then some teachers who are saying, oh, you actually should walk out, or this is, you should march, you should do this, when that's really isn't really the direction that we want our community to take. And so making sure that everyone's on the same page just about what we do want to do as a school, and share some common language.
I am aware of the time, so I want to give everybody an opportunity to ask any question or share anything that you think would be helpful. This is a really good time to use what we like to call our network. It's the best part about the National Network of Schools in Partnership is this community of sharing and learning from one another's experiences in this work, because we're all in this together to provide the best educational opportunities for all our students. So feel free to ask questions about this that we haven't touched on today.
Would there maybe be an opportunity for us to stay connected around this conversation? We have a couple of meetings this week, for example, and just wondering if we can continue to share ideas that come up as a result of what we've shared this morning.
Absolutely. We can either reconvene all of us this way or create a group conversation, what have you. Absolutely, 100%. And I should tell you, I don't know if you all know this, I will be at Cathedral School for boys on this Thursday from 9 to 11. We're talking about purpose, but we will be there. It'll be people from San Francisco that will be talking about this. So if you guys are free, we would love to have you. And that would be great. And so I will make sure I will also loop us in, because there are 3 of these webinars going on today. And it's interesting already between the first and the second one, how very different the conversations were, just the directions they took. So those will all be up on our YouTube channel and on our website. So if you want to sort of go through and see how the conversations went in different directions, at the end of the day today, I will pull together all the resources and the key points to share with the whole large group as a whole, so that you'll be able to pull out from what the other conversations happened as well.
Yeah, that would be good.
You want to talk about the students walking off campus and how you're managing that after it, or?
Yeah, I was just curious. Oops, I'm muted.
No, you just muted yourself again.
Unmute. Okay, how about now? That if we're just trying to get a sense of if other schools are actually allowing their students to walk off campus, how you're managing that, whether it be through permission from parents. I know one of you said that you're actually requiring parents to come on campus and to be there to help manage that. So that's an interesting idea. Or if you're just everyone's walking off as a school. So we don't have to answer that in this forum, but that would be a great data point to collect.
And also, we were saying that it'd be nice to connect after the 14th to hear how it went at everyone's schools. I think it would, just there's always like best practices that we can. This is not the end. This is not the last walkout. This is not the last time that there's going to be an issue that our students respond so strongly to. I mean, I hope not. So I would love to hear about what folks did and how it all went.
I think that's a great
idea. I agree. I think it'd be great to touch base after, a few weeks after, to see what the follow-up at each school looks like.
Excellent. So before we all go, I'd love to know one thing that you're taking away from this conversation. And I also, because we're always trying to do the best we can do at NNSP, if you have any direct feedback about the way this webinar was structured, if you could just email it to me. I know you all have my email because I sent you multiple emails in the last week, and I apologize for that, but I'm glad it got you here. So direct feedback is welcome. So please feel free to let us know how we can make this a little bit better or more impactful for your work. But if we could just share one thing that you're going to take away or that you're thinking about, or, you know, that's just sort of sparked something from this conversation, I would appreciate that.
The idea of a class like what's happening or going to happen at the lab school. That sounds very intriguing to me.
I'm just feeling gratitude for our community, our network right here, and for all the work that everyone does. Shared community values and being able to share what we're doing is amazing. Thank you.
Yes, I too. I just want to express appreciation. It takes time to set something like this up and to get people on board with it. And I think it's really a great contribution and enriched by the fact we're all in different schools, public, private, religious. I mean, and what we have to share with each other there, as well as I'm in awe of what each of you are doing in your own settings. And because it's not part of your contract per se. I mean, it's doing because you believe in it. So thank you.
Yeah, I agree. I feel it's helpful to hear that what other schools are doing and actually how similar we are all experiencing these issues across geography and all different types of schools. And I am interested to hear how, you know, how each of the respective walkouts or student activism or letter writing or campaigning ends up going at each of the schools. So I look forward to keeping in touch with this group.
Hi there. I'm just going to echo the same thing. You know, it's really, we were talking about, it's interesting to see what schools are here, sort of speaking from a geographic perspective. I think that says a lot. And also it just, you know, let's keep on talking. It's funny. We take away some reassurance knowing that no one really has a concrete plan. And I think that was one of the concerns that we had coming in. We were a little concerned that we didn't quite have this all nailed down, and it doesn't sound like anyone does. And that's very, there's a lot of security in that. So thanks for everybody for being so candid with your responses today.
Excellent. I think that's the biggest benefit of this, is just being honest with how it's challenging and it's not perfect and it's messy and we make mistakes. But if we can help each other do the best for our kids, then we're doing the best we can do. So I appreciate all of you for being here today and talking about this. I wish you all the best of luck with the next couple of weeks. And then I really hope for all of you that you reach out to us if we can help you at all in harnessing the energy of your kids or developing programs. I'm going to go look for more classes that are social justice based and see if I can link a couple of them. On our website, we do have a program library that has our members and the programs they have at school, and you can search. It's not complete, but it's a good place to start to look for different programs that schools are running. But as always, the best way is to send us an email or set up a phone call and just talk through it with us, and we can steer you in the right direction. So with that, I want to thank you all for being here, and I will really work hard to schedule us. All of you are going on spring break at some point in time in the next 3 weeks, I'm certain of it. So I'm going to look forward to scheduling a call when we can get the majority of you back together to see how not only the 14th went, but how you're using this energy to create more opportunities for your kids in their activism. So anyway, thank you all for being here, and I will see you all soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.